In the last part, Lloyd built a well for the villagers and starts to show off to get recognized. The villagers were still skeptical of him as he was an outsider, and so they started to throw stones at him. Lloyd dodged all the stones and continued to show off. As Lloyd walked through the village, he noticed that there are many stubborn people who refuse to even touch the water. The well was once again refilled by Lloyd, and as the villagers talked about it, Lloyd out of nowhere once again tries to get their acknowledgement. But the villagers, still skeptical, started to throw stones at him. At night, one of the families who refused to touch the water, but now they were happy to drink it. Out of nowhere, Lloyd shows up and started to promote himself, which terrified them. And soon Lloyd reached everyone who used the water and started to promote himself. The next day, it seemed like everyone was hypnotized and cheered for Lloyd. Javier was disgusted by this, and Lloyd tells him that it's a continuous imprinting effect, and now for people, he was a good guy. Lloyd tells Javier a lame joke, but he was unable to understand it, which made Lloyd depressed. But now it was not the time to be depressed, as for now, he was successful in getting the trust of the people. Lloyd asks everyone to line up as he was looking for workers to complete the construction of the underground waterway. One of them asks Lloyd if he will provide them with meals. Lloyd tells him not to worry and shows his padishah. In the royal capital, Samarkand was having a hard time as the purchases made by Lloyd using the padishah will soon exceed the funds in the royal treasury itself. Later, Lloyd and Javier were trying to scan and find the underground tunnels which were used by the rebels to avoid oppression. Lloyd knew that he can use these tunnels and convert them into water tunnels, as it will be too much to dig 35 kilometers for the waterway. But today he was unable to locate them and returns to the hotel as he had something planned in his mind. In the hotel, Sarazid and Javier were arguing as Javier was not letting her go inside Lloyd's room as he wanted to be alone tonight. Sarazid was worried for Lloyd as there were forces that were plotting a rebellion in this country, and so it was dangerous to leave Lloyd unguarded. Inside, Lloyd was patiently waiting for someone, and soon his visitors came by to pay him a visit. Sarazid draws out her sword and tells Javier to move aside, but he refused to go against his lord's order, which left her with no choice but to force her way through. But all her attacks were in vain as Javier was able to block all the attacks. As Javier was blocking all her attacks, he warns her to not raise her mana by force as her body can't handle that type of mana, and told her the right way to do it. But she was really not in the mood to be taught by him and continued her attacks. Somewhere in the Asfahan kingdom, the rebels have captured Lloyd and were questioning him. What was he planning to do with their kingdom? Instead of replying to them, Lloyd starts to laugh, which confused everyone, and so they decide to uncover him. But as they uncover his face, everyone had a weird kind of feeling as if they all were being taken as hostage instead of him. Lloyd in a happy tone tells him that before he reveals his true intentions they should know how did he end up there first. Lloyd asks the leader to untie him as his wrists were aching, but he denies it and asks not to even think about doing something stupid. Lloyd assured him as he knew if he tried to escape he will be beheaded instantly as he was against the elite forces that were rebelling against Samarkand. The leader asked Lloyd as he was really calm as if he knew that he was going to be kidnapped. Lloyd with a smiley face accepts. Moreover, Lloyd knew from the novel that the rebellion leader Therms was going to die soon, which will be the trigger to cause the Great Rebellion. Therms stared at him for a while and told his men to untie him. Therms had a soft corner for Lloyd as his daughter was on the verge of death due to dehydration, but was saved as Lloyd built the well which quenched the thirst of many people on the verge of death. They untie Lloyd, but Therms was still skeptical of him and tells him to not do something funny as his men will kill him instantly. Lloyd was really pumped up to scam him and makes a greedy face, due to which the rebels felt fear and were about to attack him. But they stopped as Lloyd struck a pose and started to tell them the adventures he had in the past. He tells them how he saved the Frontera estate, which was on the verge of collapse due to a huge loan. He tells them how he saved the Frontera estate from the monster Domino, and how he saved the port of Cremo from a giant lobster. Lloyd now had their all attention on the stories he told them. The rebels were now fully involved with him and have started to enjoy it with some popcorn. Therms noticed that Lloyd was trying to distract them, so he gets up and started to yell at him. Due to this, the other rebels were agitated and told him to sit and listen to the story. And soon the next day arrived, and we see Lloyd and Therms going somewhere. Therms was confused as he didn't know where they were going. Lloyd tells him that they are going to meet the Queen. He explained to him that he will ensure his safety from the emperor and give him a safe place to stay with his people, but in return, he has to lend him their secret tunnels. At the royal capital, the evil wizard Cannavaro was being questioned by the queen. Cannavaro tells them that there was someone named Targa behind all of this. The queen stops the questioning as he was about to die due to the use of truth spells cast on him. The royal messenger tells the queen that Lloyd was waiting for her. The queen was surprised as Lloyd was supposed to be in Asfahan. At the royal court, Lloyd and Thermes were in front of the queen. The queen accepts Lloyd's offer and tells them that she was ready to write out an asylum letter for the rebel and their families. Lloyd thanks the queen, but Thermes was confused as Lloyd was able to easily convince the queen. The queen tells Lloyd that she was quite satisfied that he was carrying out the orders properly, and made an evil face, and tells him that she will make sure that those who are capable must work to the extent of burning everything so that the people will be able to live peacefully. Lloyd was stressed out due to this. The queen tells him about the Cannavaro interrogation and tells him that she will soon need Lloyd to be on this case. Lloyd was depressed by this and was about to cry, but still, he has to agree with the queen. The queen asks Lloyd if he was a selfish and cheap guy. Lloyd was stunned as the queen gets up and was now walking towards him. The queen grabs Lloyd and stared at him, and now Lloyd knew that the biggest obstacle in his lazyhood life was standing before him. Here, in Asfahan, Javier and Sarazid were so tired of fighting each other that they fell asleep. Out of nowhere, Sarazid comes back to her senses and started to fight again. But Javier was able to easily block all her attacks, and it seemed like he was a little too bored. In an instant, Sarazid was able to summon the aura sword which shook Javier. Sarazid launched a fierce attack on Javier, and to block the attack, he summons his aura sword. Sarazid continued to swing her sword, and now Javier was also getting serious, but still, he knew that her aura sword was not stable yet. Sarazid once again launched an attack on him, but out of nowhere, the door opened and Lloyd was back. Javier was barely able to dodge the attack, but due to the immense pressure of the aura sword, Lloyd is stripped naked. Lloyd was confused for a bit. Javier was angry at Lloyd as such an attack would have killed him. Sarazid realized that Lloyd was back and started to ask questions, but Lloyd didn't want to answer her as he was out of time, so he started to sing the lullaby. As Lloyd sang the lullaby, Sarazid tried to resist, but she fell on the ground fast asleep. Lloyd was now all set for the construction and asked Javier if he was ready, but as he turns back, Javier was also fast asleep. And thus the beginning of a new project. Step 1. Go around the labyrinth-like underground tunnel and measure it. Step 2. Confirm the locations that need to be opened or blocked for the direct waterway. Step 3. During the day, block off the paths other than the waterway route, and during the night, Jair will use controlled blasts to make the paths. And for Step 4, Lloyd has invited the Ghost Skeleton Corps of the Frontera Kingdom, as they will be the main key to completing the construction. Lloyd took them to the construction site and explained to them that as there was a large amount of water right on the other side of the wall, as they will shovel further they will be swept in an instant due to immense water pressure. He tells them how in ancient times people risked their lives to make such waterways. Among the laborers, the one who's the oldest would give up his life away as he finished opening up the waterway, for the sake of their neighbors and their descendants that will continue to live. He tells them there was no sacrifice nobler than this and points his finger towards the one and only Thordes, as he was chosen by him to do such a noble deed. Thordes was destroyed by hearing this, but as Lloyd looked at him with that look, Thordes knew that he was more serious than ever for this. Lloyd hands him a pickaxe and was running away from him and told him that he will be remembered in history for his great deed. But Thordes was too scared for this, so he too started to run away with Lloyd. He asked Lloyd if the ghost army would be able to do this. Lloyd swore at him as he wanted the dead to experience death again. Thordes was truly depressed by this and asked him if Javier would do it, but Lloyd declined as Javier had only one pair of clothes with him, and he can't afford to get them wet. In Hell, the king of Hell, Helcaros was truly enjoying the scene and was excited to see what great feat Lloyd will achieve in the future. Here in Kandara, after a long time of bickering, the leader of the Ghost Skeleton Worker Squad, Turtleneck, took it upon himself to finish the work. Lloyd was disappointed as he wanted Thordes to be the chosen one. As Turtleneck used the pickaxe, the waterway opened and a huge flow of water with immense pressure was released, and water reached the civilization. Everybody in Gandhara was celebrating as an endless supply of water gushed forth. One of the villagers, a little girl, came running with a bowl full of water towards Lloyd and offered him to drink the water. Lloyd thanked her for her kindness and tells her that he will surely enjoy it. But the child had some other doubt. She asked Lloyd why was he walking around without a shirt. Lloyd smirked and told her that he didn't want to waste money on buying clothes. After opening the central waterway in Kandara, they connected the waterways to the small villages and hamlets nearby. And finally, their great journey was coming to an end. The system informed Lloyd that he has unlocked a new title, which will give him 100% resistance against dehydration in all desert regions. But he was disappointed as he will not need such a perk as he has completed his job and right now he will just laze around. Lloyd is approached by Therms. Lloyd asked Therms was he preparing for a long journey. Out of nowhere, Therms bowed down and thanked him for saving him and his people. So, Therms and all of his comrades pledge allegiance to the Frontera family until the end. The system informs Lloyd that the favorability has increased, and as a result, he has received RP points. Lloyd made a weird face as he was really happy about his RP points. And soon, Therms and his group finally headed to the Frontera territory with the guidance of the skeleton squad. It seemed like everything was resolved peacefully, but soon both of them were summoned to the royal court of Asfahan. The Sultan, Samarkand, asked Lloyd to join his kingdom, but Lloyd replied to him with strange answers as if he was not able to understand him. Samarkand knew that he has noticed that Sarazad was his daughter, and so he asked him if he will marry her. Lloyd declined as he believed that Sarazad's opinion was more important than his. The Sultan knew that Sarazad hated Lloyd strongly and will never want to marry such a man. The Sultan thanked Lloyd for his assistance with the rebellion, and as promised he will now meet the Magentano's envoy right away. Lloyd thanked the Sultan for his kindness and left the courtroom. But Samarkand had some different plans as he will never leave Lloyd and soon make him part of the kingdom. Soon a roundtable conference was arranged by the Sultan. The kingdom's knight was nervous as he was finally in front of the Sultan. The Sultan starts the conversation and apologized for the damage caused to the Magentano kingdom due to his mistake. And he was ready to pay twice for all the damages caused by the incident. The knight was stressed out as he knew that the Sultan is going to demand something unexpected from him. The knight expressed his gratitude towards the Sultan and tells him that he will deliver his message to the queen. The Sultan stops him and continued his statement, and tells him that in exchange for this, he wanted them to give Lloyd Frontera to them. Later that day, the knight went to see Lloyd and told him everything. The knight was depressed as he told him everything, and it seemed as if the offer was accepted by him. Lloyd made an unpleasant face, due to which the knight panicked and started to give excuses. Lloyd smirked and stopped him and told him that he did a great job by accepting the offer, and made another terrific face. At the royal court, the Sultan was coming up with new ideas on what he should ask Lloyd to do, but he was soon interrupted by the royal messenger. The royal messenger informed him that Lloyd was on a rampage in the desert killing the sandworms. Here, in the outskirts, we see the sandworm which was relatively small for hunting. As Lloyd hunted one, he draws his shovel and with all his might attacked it, but it was not enough. He asked Padong to attack, and Padong nailed it. But still, it was not enough, so Lloyd asked Javier to finish it. Javier draws his ore sword and launched another fierce attack. But the little sandworm was still alive, so Lloyd maniacally used even more firepower and attacked it. The Sultan was spectating the whole scene and soon Lloyd noticed him and made a happy face as he finished his job. At the royal mansion, the Sultan was analyzing the situation and knew that sooner or later the whole country will become a battlefield if he kept Lloyd by his side. But he knew that he will not be able to cancel the contract, and he finally realized that all of this was planned and he was stripped of everything from the beginning. Out of nowhere, the royal knight came by and informed the Sultan that Lloyd took the Padshah and left the palace, but the Sultan expected it to happen. Another guard come by and tells the Sultan that Sarazad had run away. This was unexpected and soon the Sultan collapsed and started to cry as has lost. That's it for today guys, thanks for watching.